A short while ago, I had the absolute pleasure of touring the Aston Martin production facility in England. It was an absolute blast. And while I never planned on making any sort of video for this, I really want to share the photos that I took and the experience that I had with all of you. So let's get after it. Welcome back to Firing Order. I'm your host, CaseyJPorter, and like on Combustion Chamber, I'm your host because I work dirt cheap. And today we're going to talk about my tour of the Aston Martin production facility. It is an absolutely beautiful facility inside and out with a lot of rare cars and a really good detailed look at how those cars are manufactured. Upon arriving to the facility, you're greeted in one of the most British ways possible with hot tea and cookies. You sign in, you get your badge, and then you're greeted by your personal tour guide, and the tour immediately starts from there. First, you specify which model you're more interested in, and at the time, it was the DB11 or the Vanquish. I know the DBS is out now and on showroom floors, and we actually got to see those cars before they hit the States. Our tour started with the interior of the vehicle, and they have a ton of options right then and there. But if you don't find anything you quite like, they can send you through Q Branch, and you can custom order things and designs in the headrest and a whole variety of just different interior options. It's pretty mind-blowing, and that's just the beginning of the tour. One of the things that stood out on the interior production line for me was the quality of the headrests. They had a lot of stamped Aston Martin logos or Q Branch logos, and if you've been in some older luxury or even exotic cars, you've seen how that wears down over time. Well, what Aston Martin is doing is stamping it, filling it with silicone on the back end, putting another piece of material over that, and baking it, for lack of a better term. That way, there's something right behind that logo to prevent it from ever going flat. And I thought that was really, really interesting. After you're done checking out the seats, you move to the rest of the interior, namely your steering wheel, dash, and infotainment system. And what was interesting is if the infotainment system looks familiar to you, it's actually sourced from Mercedes-Benz. This cuts down on Aston Martin's production costs. From there, you move on to where they have all the bodies at and the robots that move them. And to see these cars freshly painted, just the bodies, being moved along by these giant hook crane robot things, I don't know exactly what to call them, it was amazing. But what was amazing about it was the quality of the paint. You know, we got to get up close and personal with a lot of the different bodies. They're stacked pretty high. The different colors that they're offering, the options, it's really stunning to see a freshly painted Aston Martin. From there, we actually got to see a painting example on a DB11's hood. It's the largest single piece of aluminum for a production car in the world. On the hood, they have several different sections of the paint stages that the car goes through. And about the middle is where a lot of your mass production cars would stop. It has a little bit of orange peel, and it's not bad, it's not low quality, it's just where a lot of other manufacturers stop because of production costs. Well, from that point on, they actually go through a few more processes. So from what would be our driver's side to the passenger side starts out pretty rough and all the way to super smooth mirror finish. Another stage in the paint process is running the cars through these light tunnels. Now, if you're a photographer, you're familiar with different color temperatures, but in these tunnels, it would have what looked like daylight and indoor lighting, daylight, indoor lighting going down the row. And you have an entire team of people going over the car meticulously looking for any flaws. If any flaws are discovered, the car is sent back through the paint process all over again. And from somebody who photographs cars just about every week, I've seen a whole variety of different paint jobs, and that level of detail really shows because when you take that car out into the daylight, and you have a photographer like myself take a picture of it, if the paint isn't absolutely beautiful, our cameras will pick up any flaw. Working our way down the production line, you see people installing electrical systems, mating the body to the chassis, the drivetrain, and it's so much to take in. What was great about our tour guide was he wasn't trying to sell us anything. The DB11 comes with a twin-turbo V8 or the V12, and I'm sure the V12 probably costs more, but he wasn't trying to sell us on, oh, get the V12, get the V12. He said there's certain bragging rights that come with that, and I understand that, and for a purist like myself, I would always go for the V12. But it was more of a really great tour as opposed to a hard pitch sell. Another great thing about touring the facility was everybody seemed like they wanted to be there. The people working the line were one of the best parts of the tour. They enjoy what they do. You've gone to some businesses or towards some facilities where people look miserable. They probably don't want to be there. They're there for the paycheck. But people took the time to stop and talk with us. Everybody was very friendly. They were enthusiastic about what they were taking part in. And that really stood out for me on that particular tour. After the official tour was over, I still talked to our tour guide a little bit, and his level of knowledge is pretty outstanding. We talked about the Casino Royale DBS car crash stunt, and he even knew about that. He knew how they pulled it off and why they had to do certain things, and it was really cool to be able to talk to somebody not only about Aston Martins in such depth, but movie stunts as well. Another great thing about the facility and the people in it is they allowed me to bum around, take photos for a while, and that was a lot of fun. We got to see the DB10 concept car from Spectre, the Valkyrie mock-up, a Vanquish Zagato, the new Rapide E mock-up that they're working on, which is actually scheduled to appear in a new James Bond film, so that should be very exciting. I'm going to put a link to all of those photos right down below. Now, there are a few ways that you can get into Aston Martin on a factory tour. One is already be an owner and be able to verify that. Two, you're a potential owner and you're interested in seeing how the car is put together and the craftsmanship behind it. Or three, you're an automotive enthusiast or an enthusiast of the brand and you want to see just how everything comes together. If you don't own an Aston Martin or are not looking to get one but still want to take the tour, there is a fee associated with that. It's a minimum of 2 people, up to 6, for a roughly 2-hour tour with a private tour guide. So you're not with a group of people that you don't know. And that'll run you about 350 British pounds or roughly the equivalent of 450 US dollars. And that's how you can get in if you're not an owner or not in the market to buy one. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Firing Order. Right over here, we've got our Aston Martin DB9 episode that we shot. That was an amazing car to drive as well. And if you like this, hit that subscribe button and bell icon for instant notifications when we go live with new episodes. We're also on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and if you really love us, support us on Patreon.